Welcome to the Mitcham History Notes YouTube channel. Today's video concerns the Pollards Hill Golf Club. And I start the video with a map. A map from 1894 of Tooting Junction. But you might be saying, well, what's that got to do with Pollards Hill? Well, it's a bit more involved, so I need to talk about another golf club first. So, let's have a look. This is Tooting Junction Station. It's called Tooting Junction Station at this point, because this railway line to Wimbledon via Hayden's Road connects up to the station with this railway line which goes to Wimbledon via Merton Abbey. So, north of the railway line is a golf course. And then here, that blue line is where the River Graveney was, and it's also shown on the map as a parliamentary borough and union boundary. Very confusingly, this golf course was in Mitcham at this time, 1894. And, just to confuse matters, the club that played here was the Tooting Bec Golf Club, obviously. I mean, why not just call it the Tooting Junction Golf Club? But anyway, the reason I'm referring to this, subsequently this area was developed as housing. I use a background map of OpenStreetMap perhaps. Move the slider back. We see Links Road, Links Primary School, and the ABC roads, Ascot through to Jersey. And it's called Links Road because there was a golf links there. I think though today, strictly speaking, a golf links course is next to the sea, and you could hardly call the River Graveney a sea. But anyway, I guess these things change over time, don't they? Right, let's go back to the Ordnance Survey map. Now, I want to go over to the end of Mitcham Common. So zoom out a bit. And go down this way. Here's Mitcham Common. I'll zoom in a bit here to the New Barns Farm and the South Lodge. And this pond here, sometimes called Watney's Pond, the common conservators call it Arthur's Pond. And this track is not named at this point in time, but it is now known as Watney's Road. And it's called Watney's Road because John Watney owned a large amount of land around this time. Or was it Daniel Watney? Anyway, they are related to the Watney's Brewery Company. Just to orient ourselves, this road then is Comside East, and this road here is Galpins Road, and here it is in 1894 laid out. No housing on it just yet. And also of interest, as we're passing by, these circular roads here have been laid out as Pollards Hill North and Pollards Hill South, and the actual Pollards Wood is this area here, and it's possibly, quite likely, called the Pollards Hill as being a hill on which trees were grown as a plantation, and they were pollarded and cut down and to a certain point and sold off. So there would have been oak trees, the bark of which would have been used in the tannery businesses, leather tanneries, and building timber, etc. Now, Eric Montague tells us in the Pollards Hill, Comside East and Lonesome book of the Mitcham History series that in 1905 around 100 acres were bought from John Watney. We zoom in. This map, this Ordnance Survey map, has two sets of numbers. This number here, 84, refers to the field number. So that would have been down to the actual surveyor's notebook, reference book for this particular sheet. And the 28.641 refers to acres, so that's 28 acres. And there's 14, so what's that? That's 42. And there's 11, so that's 53. And There's 62 there, so that's over 100, isn't it? And the reason I'm going down here is that South Lodge became the clubhouse for the Tooting Bec Golf Club. So, can we see that on another map? So this is now a 1910 map, and it is showing the South Lodge, the clubhouse. That's the Tooting Bec Clubhouse. So there's that Arthur's Pond, that's Watney's Road. So here it says Tooting Bec Golf Course. It doesn't show any other detail or where the layout of the course was, but this is all we need to know at this point, that this golf course was the Tooting Bec one that had been where Links Road is today, next to Tooting Junction Station, north of Figs Marsh. What about the Pollards Hill Golf Club? Well, let's slow down a bit. We haven't quite got there yet. This field is now of interest. The size of it is 50.749 acres. Yes, it is kind of amusing that they're using decimal numbers for imperial measurements, but it's a lot better than acres, roods and perches. So 50.749, and it's bounded by Commonside East and Mitcham Common and Galpins Road. And the reason I'm referring to that is that this newspaper article from 1912 says on Christmas Day 1911 the Galpins Park Golf Club opened for business, and the land bounded by the Common and Galpins Road was a field of around 50 acres. Yeah. If it was the same people or it was other people, I'm not sure, but the Pollards Hill Golf Club in 1913 took over the Galpins Park Club. So did it come into existence at that point in time? Was it a breakaway group from the Galpins team? Don't know. But they established their clubhouse here at Pollards Hill Farm. So now let's have a look at a 1932 Ordnance Survey map. It's no longer telling us that Tooting Bec Golf Club is here, but it is showing us the Pollards Hill Golf Course, which, as we said, consisted of this 45-acre plot that was a part of the Galpins Park Golf Club. And I'm telling you, because I've looked it up, this is the clubhouse of the Pollards Hill Golf Club. The reason I know that is from these adverts from 1940, which refer to the address as 145 Pollards Hill South. So if we now look at 1950s Ordnance Survey map, and we can see that 145, which was listed in that advert as being the clubhouse, is there, and it's between numbers 143 and 147 Pollards Hill South. But as we can see, the golf course is now almost completely gone under housing. And there are allotment gardens here which would have been used during the war. And there's a recreation ground. And there's a school, playing fields. So yes, the golf club house is still there in 1952, but pretty much the golf course has gone under housing. When this got redeveloped, I'm not sure, but if we look at a Google satellite underneath, we can see that it was basically to the east of Recreation Way, which forms the boundary between Merton and Croydon boroughs, opposite Glamorgan Close, and these houses in Cranbourne Close are where the clubhouse was. The clubhouse would have been there in the middle. And I find it interesting that numbers 143 and 147 are next to each other in Pollards Hill South, but there is no 145 anymore. I wonder if the residents of those houses know why 145 is missing. But anyway, that's what we know in terms of the brief history of the golf club. But stay tuned if you wish to, because I'm now going to go through some newspaper articles that describe some of the stories that related to the club. 1919, Pollards Hill Golf Club. The April bogey competition in connection with the Pollards Hill Golf Club Norbury, played on Sunday, resulted as follows. Senior, F.M. Elworthy, 4, 7 down. Junior, H. Thilges Harrison, 24, 5 down. This club has been reconstructed recently and the membership is growing. 1924, 3:15 a.m. Early morning struggle at golf club, a Pollards Hill adventure. A detective had to use his truncheon in the early hours of Wednesday morning in a struggle with a burglar at Pollards Hill Golf Club Norbury, and later in the day at Croydon Court before Mr. F. Allen in the chair, Alderman G.J. Allen and Mr. T. Wickham Jones. Benjamin Hills, aged 23, of Bath Road, Mitcham, a labourer, was charged with breaking into the gentleman's dressing room at Pollards Hill Golf Club, Norbury. And later on, there's a quote from said Mr. Hills. "All right, I'll give you no trouble. I suppose you thought you would catch me." Witness asked, "What do you mean?" And he replied, "I knew I should be caught sooner or later. I have had a good run. I have done all the golf clubs about here." Charming. 1933. Pollards Hill Golf Club, Norbury, was the scene of a remarkable occurrence on Saturday evening when one man is alleged to have struck another with a riding whip. The club lounge, where the encounter took place, was full of members and their guests at the time, and a great excitement was caused. It would appear that the fellow with the whip, he put forward his wife for membership of the club, and the committee turned him down. There was one vote against, and this was the fellow he struck in the lounge. The fellow subsequently left the club and brought no charges against the person with the whip. Now, I've included this story from 1939 because there is a interesting piece of information to go with it. Fell on stairs. Action against Pollards Hill Golf Club fails. A claim by a member of the Pollards Hill Golf Club for damages for injury when he received through a fall in the clubhouse was brought against Pollards Hill Golf Club, brackets 1928, close brackets, Limited, whose registered address is Pollards Hill South, Norbury, before Mr. Justice Branson in the King's Bench Division on Tuesday. The plaintiff was Mr. David Henry Jones of Lansdale Road, SW, who is 65, and who, according to his counsel, Mr. Russell Vick, KC, could play 2 rounds of golf before the accident, but not now. He joined the club in 1930 and was elected on the committee in 1937. Since May, he had been captain of the club. His case was that on March the 5th, 1938, he was going down 3 stairs leading to the lounge in the clubhouse when his foot caught in rubber nosing on the edge of the bottom stair. He fell and dislocated his ankle so severely that he was in bed for 6 weeks. He alleged that the defendants were negligent in that the stairway was a trap. Defendants denied liability. The defence, Mr. Gilbert Paul, KC, for the defendants, submitted that the plaintiff was not in a position to sue the company because when he was elected on the committee, he automatically became a director of the company, who delegated powers regarding management of the club to the committee. Mr. Justice Branson decided in favour of the defendants. Mr. Jones said his lordship had failed to establish negligence or lack of reasonable care to keep the premises safe on the part of anybody charged with the duty of looking after the premises. If there had been negligence, the plaintiff could not have recovered against the company because in the delegation of the company's powers, the committee, of which he was a member, will be responsible for failure to keep the premises safe. Judgment for the defendants with costs was entered. And the reason I mentioned this particular fellow was because Mr. David Henry Jones was the co-inventor with his brother, Mr. Daniel Palmer Jones, of a method of tying together scaffolding, initially with wooden timber scaffolding, but then they developed one for tubing, and they set up a company called the Tubular Scaffolding Company, which was then renamed as Scaffolding Great Britain. They had their headquarters at Willow Lane, and here's a photograph I took a couple of years ago. The headquarters building is still there. The only thing that's left of that building that refers to Scaffolding Great Britain is on the drain pipes, SGB, at the top there. 1940, a golf ball was sold for £106. I think inflation adjusted, that's around £5,000 today. A world record price was paid for a golf ball sold to charity was broken at Pollards Hill Golf Club, London, yesterday. The ball, used by Henry Cotton in a 36-hole 4-ball match for the Red Cross, was auctioned and bought by the captain on behalf of the club for £106 and 5 shillings. Now, at the end of the war, the local council, the Mitcham Borough Council, wanted to make use of the land of the golf course for temporary housing, or at least that's what the golf club thought. But when it's subsequently transpired that the council wanted it for permanent housing, the golf club took them to court. And they're on hiding for nothing now. There was a huge problem with housing. It's described here in the Mitcham and Collier's Wood Gazette in 1945. The council considers the situation desperate. And it was, in fact, desperate. There were people taking possession of the anti-aircraft emplacements that were on Tooting Common and Mitcham Common. Families move in on gunsight. Squatters on Mitcham Common. The Borough Council had to enlist German prisoners of war to help on the actual building of the housing estates. And, yes, the housing estates were built. And the golf club lost its golf course. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you got this far, well done. Please leave a comment. Let me know if you found out something about this club that I didn't find out. I couldn't find any record online of any books having been published about the history of the club. I'm basically using newspaper articles and maps, as you can see in the video. There's nothing in Malden Library, in the local studies centre, about this particular golf club. There's a couple of booklets on a Wimbledon club, of course. And, well, if there has been a book published on the history of the golf club, and I've got it all completely wrong, which wouldn't surprise me, let me know. Anyway, bye for now.